Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Back on the line with us is Dan Chemist. He's becoming kind of our CBD correspondent. Happy 4th of July. What did you get? What kind of deals did you see? Talk to me.
It's pretty neat. So context is everything. So Chronic's sending me around to stores. So I went and bought my 4th of July ounce at Uncle Ike's this morning, Chron. And then I was telling them about the road show and going on the road and visiting stores and how, Ike's is the thing. And what I saw is Ike's was the thing, dude. They were loading the cash machines as I walked in. There was a little bit of a line, and they had me out of there in 4 minutes with a fresh, brand new OZ. It's like clockwork down there.
Beautiful.
This is the thing. As we go out and around the country, one of the things I'm going to tell store owners is, look, if you want to know, go see Ike's, because this is how it's supposed to be done.
He was one of the first people to really kind of commercialize his store, put it up for sale for $50 million with another store down in Vancouver called New Amsterdam, knowing that was a ridiculous price, but just it got him national publicity. So he's kind of smart when it comes to business. He knows what he's doing, and
there's no kind of about it. That dude is sharp like a whip. There, he good.
Yeah, he's definitely got the 420 prices down, the holiday sales. He knows the numbers. He's got it. He's got it figured out. All right, so we've got a couple of reports I want to roll through today, all kind of encompassing a mid-year review of cannabis usage rates. And since it's 4th of July and there's definitely going to be some usage, a better time now than to kind of dive into this. New information from New Frontier Data, kind of accumulated some intelligence data. So they talk about states with the highest rates of use have been the most progressive in advancing legalization. I think that's kind of obvious that rolls into usage and rising at vastly different rates within states. So some, conservative spot like Kansas might see 12% double-digit increase, while South Carolina had a negative 1%.
What?
Yeah, maybe people are just moving out of the state. I don't know what's going on there. But overall, nationally, we're seeing a compounded annual growth rate of consumers increasing their usage rate by 6% from 2012 to 2017.
Wow.
So normalization of cannabis attitudes is leading to higher usage. Obviously, as the whole West Coast becomes legalized, 33 states now have some kind of medical laws, 11 have recreational adult use laws. And so that normalization is kind of showing people that CBD and THC have medicinal values. And so there's an affirmation of cannabis's medical properties. That's obviously attracting a huge new segment of consumers, and then acceptance of cannabis that's appropriate within social situations, increasing the consumption opportunities for infrequent users. So, for example, I'm on the rooftop at a wedding, and I'm going to join. Somebody just happens to take it and try it in a very rare occasion. And that's just another social use example of people not being afraid to try something different.
That scene, right, where somebody's standing there and you go to pass it to them and they're like, no, I can't. And again, frequency these days, more and more people say, well, okay, I can have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely seeing a lot more of that. We're kind of seeing a lot more people smoking or using cannabis and drinking less just in about every single state. And so there's a Yahoo Finance article titled More Weed, Less Booze. And so researchers have examined ways that consumption is being reduced in alcohol and consumption is increasing in cannabis. And that kind of was led locally a few years ago at the University of Washington. So a group of scientists at the Social Development Research Group looked at the association between drinking and cannabis use. So they reviewed some reports, and the conclusion was kind of complicated. So they said, quote, it's likely that the relationship between cannabis and alcohol varies for different segments of the population and the type and course of cannabis and alcohol use. So I think maybe what that means is you look at the younger generation and maybe they're more prone to alcohol abuse. You have malt liquor, tequila, you're going to get alcohol poisoning. And on the flip side, with cannabis, if you ingest too much THC, you might get cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, which is just an influx of CBD. Your body rejects it. The dabber kids might be those that generation or that segment that smokes a lot. And so it's kind of hard to really pin it down right now. I don't think there's enough data to figure out who's doing
Yeah, but it does make sense. I mean, if your mission is to go get hammered, then, you know, if all you've got is booze, you're getting hammered on booze. If you've got some other things, you're getting hammered on those other things. But I don't think that is the pervasive segment anymore. I think that's kind of an outlier segment, and there's certainly a lot of youth and a lot of, we'll say, experimenting, but they'd be doing that with whatever, right?
Yeah, and a lot of that is, like you said, experimenting. You kind of have to figure out what your tolerance is. And a lot of kids, you know, or at least not kids, but when you first start something, you tend to be younger. When you do that, you figure out what your balance is. I think with what we're seeing in these new emerging states is that people are substituting alcohol for cannabis. So there's a new report that Puget Sound has the highest cannabis use per capita worldwide. So according to this report, Puget Sound wastewater had the highest rates of cannabis use than anywhere else that they.
Yeah, well, you know, that would figure, right? I mean, again, we do turn a lot of weed in the state. I mean, well, you know better than I what the total tax numbers are, but a lot of weed gets smoked.
So the report goes on to say that as far as the data is concerned, Western Washington is a world leader in cannabis consumption. Quote, we are part of an international study with 60 to 80 other cities around the world. And then another kind of local chart that I want to dive into is that cannabis store density surpasses Starbucks and McDonald in many markets. I was in Vancouver. I was in Toronto for the last year, and Hamilton, just about 20 minutes south of Toronto, had the highest concentration. They had about 200 stores within a couple of blocks. Hamilton is a small little town, and they had more stores than McDonald's. But since the legalization, most of those stores have been shut down. So unfortunately, we can't really experience.
You know, I've been down in the Southern Oregon, down in Medford, and dang, you know, I did a search one day, and there were 22 stores within 7 miles of me.
Mm.
I went and visited them all, and, you know, they were all there. They were all selling weed. Certainly, nobody had really broken out. Nobody was the leader. So they were all kind of chasing, you know, and at the same time, as a cannabis consumer and as a fan, gosh, how fun. But as a business person, wow, right? That's a tricky son of a gun.
Yeah, you just never see two stores, you know, side by side. You might see a McDonald's and a Burger King next door, and that's competition. But we don't even see two cannabis stores side by side. And yet, when we just went to 20 stores in North Seattle for the day, it took us about 6.5 hours. And yet, we saw some stores that were side by side.
Oh, yeah. Cushmart and Local Roots right there on 99, literally sharing a parking lot.
Right. So the Marijuana Business Daily released estimates that in Denver and Portland, Oregon, for example, cannabis retailers outnumbered Starbucks by close to double, while in Anchorage, Alaska, a new market, they're tied for density. So Seattle is the hometown of Starbucks. So the coffee giant maintains a significant lead over cannabis stores here. The relative portion in each of the cities can be partly explained by state regulations. So for Washington, for example, we're capped on the number of stores that are allowed, limiting the number of retail outlets, while Alaska, Colorado, and Oregon don't have those caps, although the municipalities can have limits. Whereas McDonald's, another iconic and recognizable brand, was outpaced in all of those markets. So the lesson that can be learned is that the data customers have less than positive experience as any given recreational store. They likely have dozens of other shops in the vicinity that they can visit instead. And we saw that in SoDo and Seattle, where certain stores shut down, like Bella.
Oh, yeah.
They had Snoop Dogg come in. They had the only place in the entire state that had a producer, processor, grower, retailer, and packaging all in the same building for people to come and see. And yet they couldn't, even with that tourist option, they didn't stay in business because you can go right next door and get something cheaper. And I think a lot of these people thought that they were going to have this really high-end store. And another one in SoDo that just got sold to Zips, a discounter, was the nicest shop, the quote Nordstrom's of cannabis. And they didn't stay in business. You're not going to walk into this marble building with, high-end $420 joints when the market is asking for $4 joints?
Well, the number of times we saw lots of people in there and very few people actually buying weed, right? Because, a wonderful visit. And at the same time, no, I'm not going to buy the super expensive Canagar. I'm going to go find my, budget ounce somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Again, in the end, people are loyal to their own checkbook.
Right. Diego Pelissar was a tourist attraction for, Kush tourism would bring people there and look at it. But again, they weren't walking out. And they even had social media influencers. America was the female bud tender there. And then you had Jake Dimmick, who was the greeter or ID checker. And so they were kind of doing the things that they thought would bring people in, but it never resulted in money, which is why they had to sell out. The Zips came in a discounter, which is the antithesis of their business plan, of Diego Pelissar's business plan, which is high end. But the market, again, will dictate, what prices happen and where your business goes.
Yeah, if you think about it, you need like one Neiman Marcus. Okay, you don't need like 50. And mostly what you need is discount, mostly. And that's, again, in terms of modeling, counting on that high-end customer who's going to buy that $300 ounce. Boy, I don't know. When it's competing with a $75 or $100 ounce, that is a tough sell.
It all boils down to just the increasing amount of people smoking or using cannabis. Nationally, the self-reported regular cannabis use has risen 50% in 8 years. So it went from almost 7% in 2009 to almost 10% in 2017. So obviously there's people that are increasing their usage, which leads to speculators wanting to open up a rec shop, even if that retail outlet is right next to another one. And so it's going to take some time. We saw it with the coffee industry, where a lot of people would open up mom-and-pop coffee shops. And then when the economy took a correction and they couldn't really hold out, they closed their business. And you saw a lot of people lower their coffee prices to try and draw businesses in. It didn't really happen because it's a matter of convenience. People want to go close to their work and not their house. And we're seeing the same thing with rec shops. If you open a rec shop in a suburb, caveat emptor, you have to be aware of where you're going. People want convenience. And so when you have a density in the city, there's a reason. It's because people want to be able to have that convenience.
It's like Bud Hut out on 99. So Kron and I were out for, a multi-store visit here a week ago. And one of the things that was interesting is talking with them about the afternoon traffic patterns on different days and how they staff based on, is it Friday at 3? Is it Monday morning, etc.? Because of where they're located, they're on a major thoroughfare, and quite literally, they've charted it now, right? They know Friday afternoons is where the bulk of their business comes. They know that people on their way to work are going to run in and buy pre-rolls because of convenience. All of the things that come with, know your store, know your location.
Yeah, so in terms of stores and how they're doing, I just pulled up a headset report based on location. And so 40% of urban stores, with suburban and retail stores coming in about 24 to 36% of sales. And so the suburban and rural stores are doing a little bit more than half or 3/4 of what the urban or city stores are doing.
Wow.
So the density, there's a reason to that. People, their shopping behavior tends to be of convenience while they're at work. Maybe they want to go right after work before they get home. Just like their coffee, they might drink some at home, but they're going to wait until they get to work. So some of the coffee companies I've worked with that have opened up in suburbs around Seattle are doing far less revenues than the ones in the city. And so they're kind of rethinking the way that they operate.
This is the thing, right? Is you look at a store footprint and you'll see these stores at, 1,500 square feet. And it's like, do you really need that? Because ultimately, a good share of the customer base literally is real time. They run in, they buy their weed, they run out, they burn it, and they go do what they're going to do so that no one is the wiser.
The cannabis companies don't have the opportunity to use other people's money. Starbucks is a publicly traded company, so they can operate anywhere. They can open up as many businesses as they want and lose money just to keep their competition out, whereas cannabis companies don't have that leisure. There are companies like Uncle Likes that you mentioned that do have some more capital behind them, prices low, to stay in the game as long as they can. Whereas some of these other businesses, mom and pop shops that have coffee companies and cannabis companies, they really need to get the data, find an analyst, find somebody who understands the market, and figure out where to operate. Because it's obvious, with what we've gone through today, that consumption is increasing, the usage rates are going up, and so it's a matter of where and how you take advantage of that. So find a good analyst, find a good business development person, take advantage of this opportunity. It's not going to last long.
Right. Be your own analyst, I'd say, and be a good one.
Absolutely. With that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Bouquet. This is Talking Hedge. Appreciate you being on the show again, Dan. Happy 4th of July.
Good. I'm going to light a cone.
Yeah. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Or don't. And I'm out.